Welcome back to another Lunch and Learn live stream. It has been a few weeks because we've been a bit busy here at Domo. As you can imagine, last week with our Domopalooza announcements, so many exciting things to share and show you. We figured after we catch our breath, and as Ben knows, I spent almost 24 hours in MSP in Minneapolis over the weekend. So after we caught our bearings and maybe caught up on some sleep, we decided to jump right in. And for those of you that may have missed some of these product announcements, for some of you that have questions about product announcements, why not jump back into these Lunch and Learn live streams and give you all of the access and content that you've been waiting for all of the things that we launched at Domopalooza. I'm Eddie Small, Director of Community Strategy here at Domo, and I am joined by my good friend, Ben Schein, a Senior Vice President of Product. Ben, how's it going, buddy?
I'm good. How are you, Eddie? I'm sorry you got stuck here. I feel like we should have like different outfits for like the Tuesday versus Thursday. Like we should have West Coast gear for when it's later in the afternoon here in Minnesota, and you could have East Coast gear when it's earlier.
Yeah,
we could
I love that. I
cue
love
it
it.
in. Which stream are we doing? Are we really at lunchtime or not?
Right. Yeah. You know, we jog some times around here just to make it interesting. But on the East Coast, especially where I live, we're getting ready to deal with just massive storm systems over the next couple of days. We had really bad weather, which is why I spent the night in Minneapolis Airport the other day. But I was emailing back and forth with Ben, like, where's the best place to sleep? Is this bench good? Is this bench good? But it was a good time. So after the craziness of all things Domopalooza, Ben, we're happy that you've joined us. We can't wait to dive into some of these product features. You have created, I believe, what may be the best one-sheet cheat sheet for Domopalooza announcements that I've ever seen. Your team has been incredible at making sure folks actually understand what they have access to, what they might have access to, what might be coming in the future. So I'd love for you to kind of give an overview of this document. Obviously, we will share this document in the comments, and as you have questions, that are all of our viewers out there that are watching, if you have questions or comments, please make sure to use the live chat out there wherever you're watching. But talk to us a little bit about how this came about and all the exciting stuff as you're kind of wrapping up the stuff from last week at Domopalooza.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was probably a little obsessive with my team. Like, I want a one page, I want a cheat sheet. And it's funny, I mentioned this on the LinkedIn post, is the history of this in my mind was actually way back in the day when I was in merchandise finance at Target. We were remodeling of all the Target stores that had more fresh vegetables and refrigeration. You might remember that. And we had all this fancy reporting and all these Excel models. And we ended up doing a one-page cheat sheet that said, like, here are the stores that are being remodeled next. Here's the assumptions. Here's some links. And everyone loved it. They like printed it out at their desk, and everyone was everyone's favorite, as much as a report can be favorite. And so that stuck with me, that lesson of, how do you have a single place? And then certainly as a customer, and now even as a Domo Sapien, like, it's always, there's so much that comes to Domopalooza, right? And you're like, did I miss that? Did I take a phone call? If it was virtual, even in person, did I hear that right? Which thing was it? And then in 2 months, you're like, wait, when was that? Was that out already or wasn't it? And even now we've gotten questions already where this becomes very clear. And so some of it is, and it's an interesting tension because there's a lot of great documentation, certainly on the website and in the product and in our knowledge base and our community and even internally for like our field and sales teams, but it can be so much. And I don't want us not to have all that detail. That detail is really important, but sometimes I just need that high level view of what's going on and a reminder of what, where do I go? How do I get this? And some of that is like transparency with where we are, right? We have always been a company that wants to innovate, that we want to push the envelope. But sometimes you have to be clear, like, what's there right now, what's in beta, what's coming very soon, what were our crazy wild ideas. Hopefully some of those will bring to fruition, but I, sort of wanting to make sure people have that construct. And if you're clicking on multiple links or going back, I had someone say, well, I was going through the video and I was trying to find this reference. And I'm like, well, here it all is, right? In terms of what happened. So hopefully it's useful. Also some transparency, like trying to make sure, like, if some things have extra costs, like, again, I've been a customer too. So, I want to understand, is this, part of the core product, or am I going to have to figure out the budget for it? And so wanting to be transparent about that. So yeah, I was really happy. I am not a designer, so we have some incredible UX designers on our team who were able to help with this and make it look nice with the colors and all that. I probably would have done like an Excel spreadsheet, and it would have looked like someone who likes Excel, which actually is a good intentional plugin to our new MS Office add-ins, which went GA. And I actually heard from the team, we've already doubled the number of customers using the add-ins just in less than a week, right?
That's amazing.
And so I am a huge fan of this work. I think, a lot of what we do, we talked a lot of the new messaging we released was around this idea of, how do you create data experiences for people? Part of that is creating experiences where people are. And people still are often in PowerPoint, in Word, in Outlook, in Excel. And so when we can make those experiences, it's almost like an alternative browser. I hear this, right? Rather than going to my website or my Chrome or whatever browser you like at Safari, I'm actually using Excel to browse Domo. Right? I'm saying what pages are there? Well, oh, I want this card. Oh, I want this filter. I want this data. I want to use it in the model. I want to show it around those things. And so I think we've seen that adoption. Other things with that, it does. And there's the obvious mode of like, hey, I have this PowerPoint I want to update all the time, or I have this Excel. But it's also a way to get data into Domo very quickly, right? If we think about, oh, I got this attachment, I want to add this to Domo, or someone send me this file, or I had this file for someone, I don't really want to go in and click. Again, it's not that hard to do in Domo either, but it's just, how do I meet you where you are, create that data experience, get you quickly from that data to the value and the business impact we want everyone to have. And so the team's done a lot of great work there. I think also really proud for those of you who've been on the journey that we while it was in beta, we really committed to, and this is a Cadell of Falconer on my team, drove a lot of this along with a lot of great engineers, let's try something new, make some updates, get more out there every month. And I think that's more and more how we're going to be thinking about development of new features. So that's super exciting. And again, it's great to see the data point of people using it more. But again, it's there. I would say the other thing, because I was back in the day, I was a huge user of SSAS cubes in Excel. And I had an old boss who loved Macs and always hated that there wasn't a really good way to, even for Microsoft native product like SSAS, to work in Excel for Mac. And so all of these work on a Mac, work on a Windows, work on the 360 web version. And so that's pretty darn exciting. You posted the link out there. Depending on what's locked down by your IT department, some IT departments might have to go and install for you. But if you don't have a lot of restrictions, you can click on that link and away you go. You use your Domo logins to be able to get multiple things, even being able to access multiple instances, right? Like those want to have multiple tabs open. Like I just want this piece of data from here or from there. And so it's pretty exciting.
That's incredible. Ben, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, and we had some folks joining, and thanks everybody for being here. If you'd like to jump in and add a comment or suggestion or question for Ben as we're chatting through this, that's what these Luncheon Learns are for. These live streams, as we're doing them every Tuesday and Thursday, providing you more community content. I would be remiss before we move on to maybe some of the things that are available in beta. What's on the list here that you guys have announced this year at Domopalooza, available now to customers? What here really stands out to you as things that you're proud of, things that you've always asked for as a customer that are finally here? I'd love to get your take on those types of things, since you kind of come from the customer side of things to now being our senior vice president of product.
All of it, of course, but no, but I mean, I am very excited with those Office integrations. I think the number of people that impacts. And I think another thing I try to balance is, I tell my teams on this, is we need to focus on the foundation, and sometimes the small things have big impacts. And so I think there's both big things here and small things. I will tell you that so this is an example. I pushed to make sure we called out those easy calculations on tables to do rankings and percent of total, because a lot of times you have to do a more complicated formula for that, or you pre-calculate it. And so I've used it already, and we've been testing it for a few months now. I've used it a ton. Like, hey, I want to see how this ranks versus that. It's so seamless and really nice to have those things. I think on the bigger side, right, the things that are, maybe slightly bigger, more complex and uses, which also means that it's not always good for everyone, is, we're really leaning in on this cloud amplifier piece. We had a separate press release around the 5 clouds we're now integrating with, either in GA, which is Dremio and Snowflake, and then in beta, which is Databricks, BigQuery, and Redshift. And again, what I think, and one of the things, and I have a slide talking about this if we want to share it later, is when I think about how do we translate the mission we laid out, right? That we're a data experience platform. We want to make data work for everyone so that they can increase and really multiply and amplify and exponentially impact their business. When I think about how do I help that happen from a product perspective, I think about friction, right? And so where can I remove friction? Maybe where can I make it easier for someone to get to that impact, get to that value? Where is there a place in our system that maybe it's too many clicks or too much work? And so this cloud amplifier motion to me is a huge friction reducer, right? For people who already have, one of these clouds, whether it's Databricks or Snowflake, or some of their team has been using Domo, some other their team is on Redshift. The frictionless motion of now getting all the value of Domo, including the MS Office add-ins, by the way, right, or all these other things. When I could just click a button and say expose this set of data to live somewhere else, I think it's huge. And doing it in a way that's uniquely Domo, doing it in a way where we still focus on the learning and still having magic ETL, and the need to transform data, and the end user and the low code user. And so it's not like we're, because some people can say like a lot, there's many other visualizations, or is it always queried directly? There's a reason we didn't always query directly, and it's because those enrichment activities, alerting, transformation of data, bringing data from multiple sources, were always a key part of how we drive value. And so we don't want to do this in a Domo way, and this is really leaning in there. Couple other things. I'm trying to think of anything else in GA. I mean, I've talked before in the blog posts in Jupyter and Pramana, and all those places are really good. Some other things in terms of beta, in addition to cloud amplifier, workflows you're hearing a lot about. It's really exciting to be in public beta for this, and just connecting. Another one of those friction points is like, okay, I have all this data, I've made it useful, I've made this awesome dashboard. Now what? Right? So what? How do I actually drive action? And so workflows are going to be a big part of that. I think often the best app is an app that you don't even have to use, right? If something can happen in an automated fashion and that's happening, that's great. I will say the other sort of baby of mine, well, there's 2 other ones that are very sort of close to my heart: Magic ETL, subset processing and partitioning. I know in the main session, we had someone in the chat who said, oh my gosh, I had a magic job that was taking 3 hours and now it takes 2 minutes. I was on earlier today with a customer trying to solve a problem with them and some of our team using this. So that is something that we've been trying to figure out the right way to introduce those more complex data accumulation and management concepts. And that's really exciting, as well as I've been a longtime proponent of this cards loads report, which has been is in beta and sort of a limited beta right now, but we're giving a little more transparency to what's going on in the system, mostly because often for a lot of our customers, it's the major Domo, it's the person, our community members here on the ground that are the face of Domo. And so how do we equip you with the right data to be able to drive that forward and really understand that? And so that's a really exciting one, and I can't wait to get that out more broadly as well. If we go to the coming soon bucket, which is our last bucket here, or like is the second last bucket, continued enhancements to Cloud Amplifier, making it more seamless, again, reducing friction, and then also Domo App Studio, which we have had some spirited conversations at our customer advisory boards around this. I think we've used the word app for a long time at Domo, and I think we can own that we haven't always been clear about what that means or how it works. And so I think we're trying to get clarity across the product, even like what's called what, but really this idea that we have really 2 main pathways for creating apps. One is our professional code app framework, where either if you know Java, you can download the whole SDK and build it your own. can use a brick within that framework too as sort of a medium code option there. But we don't really have a way to get to that the full app experience in a low code manner. And so that's what App Studio is going to be. Look, I think a lot of what we've done is custom apps in the past. Some of it was just better design or more precise design. So we'll have some of that and themes and things like that, but it also will have the connectivity to workflows, the ability eventually to call data science or machine learning or large language models from the app to do something, the ability to collect data in a form. And so all of that will be a new experience. And even just the idea, look, I think, I sort of said the simple things. Like sometimes it's okay if an app is just a better, more bespoke navigational experience for your users, right? That's also what an app could be of like, hey, I have these 5 dashboards. Some people didn't know where they weren't in the right order. People didn't know how they related. And can I just use App Studio, to create a more bespoke navigational process for my end users, even if it's more about the core BI and the dashboard piece, but how I link those together. And so I think we're really excited to get this towards a beta. Again, starting with some of those foundational elements around design and layout and interactivity, but then with a vision that it will become, very robust, while still having a place for our pro code development, whether it's your own resources or our engineering services team has always done amazing work. We saw like Constellium on the main stage, the aluminum guys, which I love their story.
Yeah.
It's possible eventually some of that you can build in App Studio, but there's a lot of very bespoke, specific logic that might always be a custom app in the pro code development framework. And so there's always going to be a place. It's not an either or. It's just how do we continue to exponentially add value in all things. And so that'll be fun to start getting it out to people in beta, get feedback, learn along the way, figure out how it fits into the rest of the platform. But it is fun. And again, what I would say, everything, and even some of the things in the sneak, but everything up until this point, it is either generally available in beta, or if it's coming soon, it means we have engineers, hands on keyboards, working on this, working software, which we've showed at our sales kickoff, at our customer advisory boards. So I'm really passionate. Like we need to, what we're sharing here has to be stuff that's at least close to fruition and actually driving value, not just what's interesting and cool. And so I think that'll be exciting.
A shameless plug as always. I'm not above it, as Ben knows, to talk about some of these features as far as they pertain to you. And the only way to kind of give us that insight into product is to engage with our community forum ideas exchange, where you can actually submit product ideas and they can be upvoted into some of these coming soon and sneak peeks. In fact, you have to be signed in to our experience for that. So I'll give just a brief overview. We have a brand new community experience on domo.com, Domo Central, which will lead you to our brand new forum experience that we've worked really hard on over the last several months. So not only has Ben announcing some product updates, we also announced our Domo Central experience, which a piece of that is our community forums. And a part of that inside of the community forums is the ideas exchange, again, where you can submit product ideas. There are lots of great product ideas here already, but sign in. Make sure you're signed in, and that way you can submit new ideas and obviously upvote ideas as they come in. Obviously, you've already got a lot of good ideas here, Ben, but more stuff for your team to work on.
And more data points. And look, I think, obviously we have the feedback button in the product. You talk with your CSMs and your SCs and your partners. And, I think my commitment is like, we're going to continue to use more data points, understand how it all comes together. See, are there 5 things here that we can solve together in a different way that maybe they haven't thought about it? And so I haven't been, I have to check my own activity. I have tried to be more active in the community and its prior iterations. I will continue to try to be out there, answer a few questions, hopefully not badly, but I would just echo that the new community is great, as well as for the more pro code folks, a completely redesigned developer.domo.com with better ability to test. And more importantly, which, it's funny, like it's one of those things where in some ways you don't think, you being the community, don't care per se, but it's also a lot easier for us to keep it updated. As we have better documentation, we make changes to APIs and things like that. The process on the back ends is much smoother. So the way that will come up for you guys is you'll see it more relevant. If you have a feedback, we'll be able to change it. We've had a couple, even since last week, internal notes of, hey, this is wrong or this is missing. And so making that process more smooth is definitely a benefit to the whole community as we sort of lean into more documentation and those kinds of things. So yeah, definitely excited about all of it, about the whole Domo Central and the different layers. So yeah, Eddie brought that up there. And I will say, I mean, certainly if you're just out there in the interwebs looking at this video, it's pretty easy to spin up a developer trial, right? And be able to try it and test things. And so I'm pretty proud that from a cloud operations standpoint, we make that easy and accessible. I know, having sometimes work with other, right, we have to test technology across the board. It's not always so easy. So I'm really proud of our team, what we have there in terms of making that easy for people. So
Ben, as you look forward towards the future, DP is behind us. We made a lot of announcements. We've shown some beta, some coming soon. As we move forward, what are the big buckets for you leading the team as far as these are the things we need to focus our energy on? Here's some emerging technology. Obviously, AI and Chat GPT. We had a full session about, how that may integrate at some point. But talk a little bit about what you have your eyes set on as leading the team moving forward, and what we might, maybe a little sneak peek on what we might be hearing about in next year's Domopalooza.
Yeah, let me see what it'll let me do.
Oh, you're going to share some things.
Share. Let's see.
Here we go. I'm excited. You might be on a different computer, which would definitely probably throw some loops at us, but we'll find out.
Yeah, I should probably, well, we'll see. Maybe I should do the full slide here. Hold on. I'll just do the old PowerPoint trick because I think it'll be easier.
All right.
For
it. As you work through that, Ben, I just want to remind folks that are watching, please comment, make questions, suggestions in the live chats, wherever you may be watching. We're happy to dive into those and answer them live. That's what these Luncheon Learnings are. They're very informal and ways for us to just chat about the things that are going on here at Domo. Ben has done it.
I did it. I made it work.
No, I can't wait.
So yeah, and I shared this. Some of the behind the scenes of Domopaloozas, it's not just the big event. We had customer advisory boards, session for industry analysts like Forrester, Gartner, Dresner, those kinds of guys, and then and girls. And then this morning we did an investor session too, which I think is public. So this is public, so I can do it. I sort of mentioned before this idea of friction, right? So if I think about I want to see exponential creation of business impact. I'm not satisfied with hey, we got 5 or 10%. It's somewhat like Moore's law, who he just passed away, the founder of Intel, or one of the founders of Intel, right, where he just said things are going to double. That's the kind of exponentiality we want for our customers. And in order to do that, right, we need to think about what are those friction points, right? So I've sort of been thinking about the future in our next year and years around these 5 friction points. Unlocking new data. How do I then use that data to create content and enrich it? How do I drive action with that data, which I mentioned? How do I make it easy to find and use the content that I have created, right? We have that problem sometimes, Domo is so easy to get data into and create that we're almost a victim of our own success, and there's too much. How do I make it more organized? And then how do I expend the impact of that content? And so the way that those 5 sort of show up in terms of where I have the team focused, and some of this more on the left side, I would say you already was covered, right, and what we were talking about for Domopalooza, right, in terms of cloud amplifier to unlock new data, as well as enhancements to our connector ecosystem, our API documentation, thinking about how do we really create content, which some of that will come with App Studio, as I mentioned. Some of that comes with, again, in my mind, creating the content is also making the data enriched and relevant and cleansed. And so some of the enhancements, whether it's partitioning or other things in Magic ETL, are a big part of that, as well as our brand kit and making things relevant. How do I then drive action with it? Well, I do that using App Studio as a low-code option, using workflows to automate process or call from App Studio or other apps, and having a robust developer ecosystem that will let me, create these more bespoke, custom applications within Domo with Domo as a foundation. And I think a lot of that you've already sort of seen. That's a lot of what covered in DP. I think the right side is a little bit more of us pushing into the next frontier. And so in that bucket of find and use, which is where a lot of my time is right now, is how do we think about navigation and discovery and merchandising of content differently within Domo, making it usable and easy to find what I want, what I don't want, what I used to want, but I don't want anymore. And then looking at data models and semantic layers of how do we lean into this space. It's a space we haven't played in as much, right? We have a lot of data. We have some, modeling tools. We have views. We have tagging that helps get there. But I think a real push towards that being a way to unlock the value of data, and then obviously some of the work around NLQ and GPT and just large language models in general. We're really thinking about that as wanting to ensure we have flexibility to choose what model we want to use. Just because it's still early and there's lots, and sometimes you want to send something external, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you might have your own model you trained in SageMaker or that you have hosted somewhere else. And so a lot of the foundation going on now around that is that flexibility, potentially having some options that are completely housed within Domo that will let you train on your own, integrating with Jupyter, all those things. But I think we want to be smart about how we do that and how we lean in there. And then in terms of expanding our impact, it continues to look at what does App Store look like. We're testing some, potential for partners to be able to charge for apps in the App Store, leveraging Stripe. So that's, again, a new frontier. How do we amplify the impact of you as a developer trying to share stuff? Domo Everywhere being a big part of how you extend to customers or other partners within the ecosystem. And then the last one is sort of a new one that I'm pretty passionate about, is this idea of either a more advanced quick start, or really I talk about them more as Domo data recipes of, we have all this great content. We have really, complex but simple ways to get things done in Domo. How do I share those experiences with others? Whether that's within the community, whether that's within, as a consultant working with someone, whether it's all teams sharing with a customer. I think there's just a lot of emotions there and a lot of value there. Whether it's someone using Domo for the first time who wants a guided experience, but still have the richness of the platform, we really want to provide that. And so these are some of the big buckets we're going after. I think some of them we know are already in flight. Some are in, pre-flight maybe, and trying to figure out the right balance of how we do things. But I think that will, come together. So I
Ben,
see a question. Yes.
Yeah, we've got
go
a
ahead.
question coming in from our good friends at Data Crew. So let's talk a little bit about, this is an interesting question. I think it's, something that we definitely talk about, but which features or releases have we seen the largest adoption over the years? So taking a step back, let's rewind the tape a bit. Go back to pre-Domopalooza. What sort of things are seeing, large, scaled adoption across our platform? As Data Crew says here, it's pretty exciting to develop products for the 1% of strategic accounts, but what is getting the most traction? I think this is always helpful for those folks that are leading big teams, trying to decide, where can I start? Where can I introduce people to? What gets the most usage? I'm governing the tool.
Yeah. No, and some of that, comes back to continued transparency around Domo stats and having the right data. If you're managing it on your own, right, that's for within your own ecosystem. But obviously, like, how do I use data on my end? I think anyone who knows me knows that I'm a big user of Domo. I think it might have annoyed when I pick up this team. One of the first people that sent me a card on my team, I right away made a change and said, no, do it this way. And so I am a practitioner for all the good and bad. And I've created, thousands and thousands and thousands of objects in Domo. And so I definitely take that perspective of a user, but also want to use data to drive that. And so certainly, one of the things since I took over this broader product strategy role in January, I have been pushing that everything we do has to have metrics tied to it, right? So that's part of it. And so some of that's starting team by team. And so whether that's something we've invested in like Cloud Amplifier, which I would argue it's more than the 1% of strategic accounts. I don't think anything is 1%, but I guess it depends. It's always in the metric, like how you're defining that, right? But who's using it? How many people are using it? Are we getting more people using it now that it's in beta? How many tickets are we seeing? All that we look at. I think another one was, Bricks. At first, we were all really excited about, and I could tell you right now how many people are using Bricks. Let me open. Right, was another one. You heard me mention the stats around the add-in, and certainly we're looking at stats like, right, we're testing payments in the App Store. What does that look like? How does that change things? Who's looking at the website? And so I think we all know it's never like one-to-one, the exact metric, or, sometimes we don't have all the data we want even internally, but I think we're starting certainly to lean in on those conversations. And as a leader of our organization, I'm definitely pushing that, that kind of a perspective, that we really need to understand who's using things. Are we seeing, adoption? And if we're not, and it could be positive or negative. It could be we're seeing adoption, or we're seeing a certain behavior that's actually not a good behavior. People having to click twice on something, or whatever it is. And so I could tell you that, we had 156,000 views of Bricks last week. And, last year, this time, or back in June of 22, we were around 40,000. So it's definitely on an upward trajectory of use and value. I don't know. Look at the wrong card. See, it's all in the card you created. I don't have counts on it, but I want to say it's here, I have it here. How many accounts? So I don't have a summary, but anyway, over hundreds of accounts too. And so I think that is, by far the signal of where we do that. And look, I think part of my job, looking over all of it, is okay, let's look at ththese data points. How does this balance with what we're trying to do with App Studio, what we're trying to do from a pro code perspective, what's happening with workflows or Jupyter? And there's the beauty of Domo in a lot of ways. So it was 386 customers had at least one person view a brick last week, up from like 200 a year ago. And again, the per whatever has been pretty high. And so, look, I think it's on me to try to weave that together. I mean, that's the beauty and the challenge of this job, is saying, well, we have data points here. This is working really well. How do I redo that? I see the comment there from Michael on variables. I love variables, but I can tell you 10 things I'd like to fix about them too. Make them easier to manage, make them easier to share in some ways. We did a sneak on a feature we do have sort of partially developed, and hopefully we'll push later this year. No promises, right? It was in the sneaks around column collections and some of those things. And so, again, we have to use the data, see who's using what, continue to drive, where we see the most impact. And again, while still having that big picture, I love that we have multiple ways to do things in Domo. We should always be there. We should be clear on best practice and when to use what. And then I also want to, think about like how we, if we're pushing here, maybe we can leverage a different channel or a different feature to do different things. And so that's sort of the challenge of the job, and some of the fun as well. So.
Yeah, I love that. Ben, anything else on your list? I know that we have done a lot of work inside of the community and inside the product to make sure that we're bringing you live streams that are applicable, that we're letting you know the topics that need support, especially across our platforms. I spent some time earlier this week, just a little inside baseball for people that are watching, a little bit of time this week with the team, looking at our community, what's being talked about, what is being asked, what needs the most support across the platform. So we're really going to start tightening up these live streams to make sure that they are reaching the masses when it comes to this is what's being chatted about. This is what we need the most support with. I think it's funny because it just really feels, Ben, as we're all rowing in the same direction right now with some of the things that we're putting together, the content that we're creating, the way the product is working. It's great. So I publicly, I wanted to thank you for at least jumping on quickly to do a little post EP update, because it is very helpful for our folks that are watching and kind of digesting all of the stuff they get over the few days that we talk about Domopalooza last week. So I really do appreciate it.
No, it's certainly, all of my, my team more broadly, right, from product management, strategic architecture, even UX, right? We've had some of my team on too. Like, I definitely want us to be out there talking with community, sharing what we know, getting the conversation starting.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Let's finish on a fun one. How about that? Ben, we're going to put you on the spot here. What would be an interesting app or brick that you would want to see smart, datey, curious people build in the community? Our good friend Jason, who we got to spend some time with last week for Domopalooza.
Yes, that is a good question, Jason. We did a live session on one of the ones I really liked that I finagled someone to build for me. We are experimenting with different GPT stuff with bricks. I mean, there's longer term solutions to manage security and external versus internal. So that's always where like the bricks become, they're good and bad. I think I built an app once, working with a customer that we never fully brought to fruition, but I really like the idea of sort of customized drill paths, right? With something we don't have multiple drill paths right now on a card. So that ability to say, like, here's my level 1, here's choose your own adventure, 3 different levels I want to go down to, right? To switch to different cards. So I think that's very doable. I don't know if we ever have. So that could be an interesting one, right? Of saying like, hey, if I want to see this broken down this way, et cetera. So
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Awesome. Well, Ben, thank you so much. Unless you have more to share, I don't want to cut you off too early.
No, those were my big things.
That's great.
Look, I'm proud of the team. Even more excited that I think the quantity of what we'll deliver in the next year, whether that's, on regular releases, in terms of best practice, in terms of community, in terms of what we actually release next year doing Palooza, I think it's going to be a great year, and I'm excited to see what we can deliver. And again, ultimately, like, what's the impact you all could have on your business because of it? That's our end game.
Yeah, love it. All right, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll let you go on this beautiful Monday afternoon in the States.
Yes.
And again, depending on what time zone you may be in, we may talk about time at some point coming up in these live stream lunch and learns. Really excited for all of the contents coming up. Join us on Thursday, where we'll have the data science team on. And we'll also be promoting on that Thursday session our April community virtual meetup. As always, lots of love for Ben. I don't necessarily know if you need to thank me. I just come in here and push the buttons. But Ben is the brains, right? So thanks, Jason, for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
So join us on Thursday, which will be the 10:30 Mountain, 12:30 Eastern time. For those of you that are interested, we'll be happy to provide you some more updates from our data science team. We do those the first Thursday of every month. If you're curious, you're like, hey, data science is showing up an awful lot. It's because they have signed up for every Thursday, the first Thursday of every month, which we love. So we're going to bring them back next week. We're going to talk more about community. We'll talk more about our virtual meetups. And as always, deep dive into the product. Ben, thanks again, buddy. Really appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day, everyone.